How to accept Monero is one of the most commonly asked questions, and it's a topic that came directly from a poll that was run on X.com, asking what people wanted to see covered next. The answer isn't one single method. It depends on how technical you are, how much volume you expect, what your business margins look like, and whether you want to accept Monero online, in person, or both. In this video, this will be broken down from the easiest possible ways to accept Monero all the way up to fully self-hosted and custom-built systems. Along the way, this will cover how payments actually work, how pricing is handled, what problems come up in real life, and why businesses often start simple and then work their way up to more advanced setups over time. Before getting into details, this video is for informational purposes only. This is not financial advice, tax advice, or legal advice. Always do your own research and consult professionally qualified people for anything related to compliance, taxation, or legal requirements in your jurisdiction. How accepting Monero works at a high level. At a high level, accepting Monero is actually simple. A business has a Monero wallet. That wallet produces an address. A customer sends a payment from their own wallet to that address. The transaction is broadcast to the Monero network, confirmed, and once the payment conditions are met, the business delivers the product or service. Everything else that will be discussed in this video exists to make the basic workflow easier for customers, safer for merchants, and easier to automate and reconcile as volume increases. How customers actually send payments. From a customer's perspective, Monero payments usually happen in one of two ways. The first is copy and paste. The customer copies a Monero address, pastes it into their wallet, manually enters an amount, and sends the payment. This works, but it's where many mistakes often happen. Amounts can be wrong, decimals can be misplaced, or the wrong address can be pasted. The second and preferred method is using QR codes. A QR code contains just the wallet address, or it can contain both the wallet address and the exact payment amount. Many Monero wallets will automatically fill in the address and amount when a QR code is scanned. This reduces user error dramatically and makes checkout much smoother, especially in person. This is why professional payment systems almost always rely on QR code-based invoices rather than static addresses. Static addresses versus unique invoice addresses. With very simple setups, a business may use a single static Monero address for all payments. That address might be posted on a website, sent over email, or shown as a QR code. The downside is that every customer is paying the same address. There is no automatic way to know which payment belongs to which order, whether the correct amount was sent, or whether a payment was late. More advanced systems solve this by generating a unique payment request for each order. That request includes a unique address, a fixed Monero amount based on the current fiat price, and a time window before the invoice expires. This makes it possible to automatically match payments to orders and dramatically reduces manual work, wallet synchronization, and internet requirements. One important practical detail that often gets overlooked is wallet synchronization. Monero wallets need to be synchronized with the network before they can send a payment. That means the customer needs a working internet connection, and if the wallet hasn't been opened recently, it may need time to sync. For in-person payments, this matters a lot. If a customer's wallet is out of sync or their connection is poor, checkout can slow down. This is one of the reasons some businesses choose specific confirmation rules, invoice-based systems, or even alternative workflows to avoid delays at the counter. The first requirement, a wallet. To accept Monero at all, a business needs a Monero wallet. That wallet could be a desktop wallet, a mobile wallet, a hardware wallet, or in some limited cases, an exchange wallet. Regardless of the method used, Every setup ultimately routes payment to a wallet that the business controls or designates. The easiest method, manual acceptance. The absolute easiest way to accept Monero is manually. This looks like the customer contacting the business sending a Monero address, the customer sending payment, and the business manually checking that the payment arrived. Another variation is simply posting a Monero address directly on a website and instructing customers to send payment there. This approach has almost no setup cost, no fees, and full custody of funds. However, it has no invoices, no automation, requires manual confirmation, creates friction for customers, and does not scale well. It works best for one-off payments, donations, trusted customers, or early testing. Real-world payment problems. Once real users start paying, a few common issues appear. Underpayments often happen when customers manually enter amounts or when price changes. These are usually handled by asking for the remainder or refunding and reissuing payment instructions. Overpayments also happen, usually by accident. These are typically handled by crediting the difference or refunding the excess. Expired payments happen when a customer pays after the price or invoice window has changed. These are usually handled manually by accepting payment, if reasonable, or refunding and issuing a new invoice. At low volume, these problems are manageable. At high volume, they become a support burden. Exchange wallets and fiat conversion. Another option is using a deposit address from an exchange. This approach generally only makes sense if the goal is to immediately sell Monero and deposit fiat into a bank account. For most Monero-friendly businesses, this is discouraged early on. The business does not control the wallet. Funds are subject to exchange policies. Conversion and withdrawal fees apply. Privacy is reduced, and it does not scale well as a long-term merchant workflow. Instant exchange swap payments. Another way to receive payments is using an instant swap exchange. You can request a payment amount in fiat and allow the customer to pay in Monero. This makes conversion from Monero to a fiat stablecoin easy for you to use as a merchant. How fiat pricing is determined. Most businesses think in fiat terms, even when accepting Monero. With manual steps, the business looks at the current Monero price on an exchange, calculates the amount, and tells the customer what to send. This works, but it's fragile because prices move and customers may pay late. Payment processors automate this by pulling price data from one or more exchanges, calculating a Monero amount at checkout, locking that rate for a short time window, and generating an invoice with an expiration. If payment arrives late, it may be flagged as under or overpayment. Self-hosted systems work similarly, but the business chooses which exchange price source to use, how long rates are locked, and how expired invoices are handled. Payment processors. Payment processors automate almost everything discussed so far. They generate unique addresses, lock fiat prices, produce QR codes with address and amount, enforce invoice expiration, and automatically detect payments. A commonly used option is NOWPayments. With processors like this, payments can be forwarded directly to a private wallet, meaning only a public address is shared and private keys remain under the merchant's control. The trade-off is processing fees and reliance on a third party, but for many businesses, this is the best first professional upgrade. Plugins and website integrations. For WordPress and WooCommerce sites, plugins allow Monero payments to happen directly on the website. These plugins usually generate invoices, QR codes, and detect payments while reducing manual work. A curated list of integrations and open source tools can be found on monerica.com/merchant-services. Accepting Monero in person. Accepting Monero in person introduces additional considerations such as speed, confirmations, staff training, and internet reliability. The simplest approach is displaying a static QR code. This is easy, but manual and slow during busy periods. A more professional approach is invoice-based checkout, where a phone or tablet generates a unique invoice with a QR code that includes address and amount. A more advanced option is using BTCPay Server as a point-of-sale system. In this setup, a cashier enters an amount, a unique invoice is generated, a QR code is shown, and payment detection happens automatically, without storing private keys on the server. Online purchase, in-person pickup strategy. For some businesses, especially those with non-technical staff or busy environments, it may be easier to sell items online, accept Monero through a clean checkout flow, and allow customers to pick up the items in person. This avoids training staff on crypto payments, dealing with wallet sync delays at the counter, and handling confirmations under time pressure. Confirmation times. When a Monero payment is sent, it goes through confirmation stages. Zero confirmations are fastest, but carry more risk and are often accepted for small purchases. One confirmation is much safer and usually takes around 2 minutes, making it common for retail. Many confirmations, 10 or more, provide very high certainty but are slow and typically used for high-value transactions or delayed delivery. Some invoice systems allow merchants to configure these rules automatically. Self-hosting with BTCPay Server. Self-hosting means running your own payment infrastructure. At a high level, this requires a server, disk space planning, a Monero backend, such as a local node or remote node, wallet configuration, confirmation rules, and invoice and point-of-sale configuration. A full Monero node can require hundreds of gigabytes of disk space and grows over time. A prune node uses less disk space but has trade-offs. The benefit of self-hosting is no processor fees, full control, and one system for online and in-person payments. The cost is setup time and ongoing maintenance. Building your own Monero payment system. The hardest option is building a system from scratch. This typically requires running Monero D using Wallet RPC to generate addresses and track payments, creating unique sub-addresses per order, building invoice records with amounts and expirations, sourcing exchange rates, locking prices, detecting payments in the background, and handling underpayments, overpayments, late payments, refunds, backups, and security. This offers maximum control and is usually only justified when requirements are very specific and engineering resources are available. A final summary. Manual acceptance is easiest, but does not scale. Exchange wallets mainly make sense for fiat conversion. Payment processors automate pricing, invoicing, and detection. Plugins simplify website integration. BTCPay Server enables self-hosted online and in-person payments. Custom systems require significant engineering effort. The right choice depends on volume, margins, online versus in-person needs, staff training, and technical comfort. A common progression is starting simple, moving to a processor, and graduating to self-hosting when volume justifies it. What comes next? Once Monero payments are working, new questions appear. How long should fiat prices be locked? How many confirmations are enough? How should refunds be handled privately? How do partial or late payments get reconciled? How does everything integrate cleanly into websites or point-of-sale systems? Those are the next problems to solve. A final resource. For a curated list of payment processors, integrations, point-of-sale tools, and open-source projects, visit monerica.com/merchant-services. That's the best place to compare options and choose the right path.
Like, share, subscribe. Stay private. Stay free. Monerica.com